Handicapper Steve here, handicapping the racing from Santa Anita Park here on Tuesday. It is the 26th of December, 2023. Gonna look at the stakes races here on opening day. But before I get on to that, remember to please follow me on Twitter at Horse Racing Kid 5 for more selections for race courses around the world. And remember to go check out my Kempton King George preview. It's one of the main days of the UK National Hunt fixture list, the jumps fixture list. One of the main days of the season is Boxing Day, and especially at Kempton with the King George. That's a Cheltenham Gold Cup kind of prep race, and you just see always some good horses run. Small field this year, but it's a good quality field, so I hope you check out that preview there. And join me later in the week, Saturday, for my Gulfstream, Harlan's Holiday, Fort Lauderdale, and Pegasus Preview Day selection video and preview picks, whatever I want to call it. So it's going to be a good week here. We have some good races to end off the season, the year coming up this week. So I hope you join me for some previews. But it's a good card from Santa Anita. So let's get to it right now. And this season is going to be my 21st Santa Anita opening day that I can remember. You're just looking at, so it's going to be quite nice. It feels like yesterday was I was looking at these races in like 2003 or 2004, and it's just it brings back so many good memories. Next week's, by the way, I'm off subject, but next week is going to be 20 years since I saw Smarty Jones win the Count Fleet at Aqueduct, and we all know what he did after that in Arkansas, and then go on to win the the Derby and the Preakness. It's just a shame about that 109 to 3/4 in the Belmont or something crazy like that. But if he didn't do that, he probably would have won by open lengths. But I'm off subject. Let me get to the Santa Anita opening day preview. We'll look at the stakes races 3, 5, 6, 8, 9, and 10. Did you get that? Let's get to it right now. Third race from Santa Anita. It is the San Gabriel Stakes. It's a Grade 2 event going for a $200,000 purse. Race for 3-year-olds and upwards. We have a field of 6 horses going 1,800 meters or 1.1 on the Santa Anita turf course. I'm going to take the 4-horse here, Mr. Cut as the top selection. I'm going to go 4, 5, 2, 3 in the superfecta. 4, 5, 2, 3 super. Top selection of 4-horse, Mr. Cut. 4-year-old colt by Quality Road. John Sadler trains. Irad Ortiz Jr. comes in from the east to ride this horse. Most recently, they ran the horse on the dirt at Santa Anita, 4th of November, a mile and a quarter in the Breeders' Cup Classic. He finished 12th by 17.5 lengths that day, and he beat nobody home. He just kind of stalked and just had nothing. Absolutely horrible performance. He just wasn't keeping up with those horses. I thought they were setting their heights a little bit too high. Refreshing here back to the lawn where he's proven himself. Much lesser quality horses. He's going to be in a better spot to win. Picking up Irad also is not a bad thing. 2 back over the longer trip at Santa Anita on the dirt, 1st of October, a mile and a half in the Tokyo City Cup. He won by 5.5 lengths that day, and he basically walked around the race course, tracked early on. He got the lead, and then he took off clear. A 98 Beyer, that was the best stateside performance for him. And then prior to that, in the Delmore Handicap, a mile 3/8 on the lawn, 2nd of September. He finished 4th by 1/4 lengths that day, and he sat back early. He was really wide late, but he was gaining. Race was a mile and a half. He probably would have made it interesting, but not a bad race after all said and done, back to turf. And then, they tried him on dirt in the San Diego Handicap where he didn't do a lot of running. And then his stateside debut locally on the dirt in a lounge race. He finished 2nd by 4.25 lengths, but I think he just wants to run on turf. He was a winner on the synthetic last year in the Churchill Stakes at Lingfield quite nicely, and was actually a Royal Ascot winner, winning the Golden Gate handicap over the mile and a quarter in the summer of 2022, winning by 4.5 lengths. He was stupidly wide, but he really took off clear. So he's proven he just wants to run on the green stuff. He's going to get it today. He's training well, getting serious class relief. I'll use him on the ticket. The 5-horse Tio Magico, pardon me, I can't speak today. It's been a long day. It's been a long month. I don't want to go into it, but it's just been a very long month. Great year, just a long month. Valdemado trains 1. Flavio and Pratt gets the mounts. Hasn't been seen since early November locally. A mile in the 8th and optional 80 claimer, where he won by a neck and basically sat on the front and all throughout. He was drifting late, but he just held on to the race. It was a very good run, changing the tactics. He usually comes from a little bit behind, like he did 3 back at Del Mar, mile 16th and option 40, where he didn't get out of the gate so clearly. It was stupidly wide, but he had the turn of foot to win. He's only won, twice this season, but he's running these good races. He is stepping up in some class here, but at 3-1 off some decent runs, his Buyer's up to par. I'll give him a shot on the ticket. But to recount my selection for a third from Santa Anita now, it is the Grade 2 San Gabriel. Gonna take the 4-horse Mr. Cut. Give kudos to the 5-horse Tio Magico. Where are we? 5, 4, 2, 3 super. Or, excuse me, 4, 5, 2, 3 super. 4523 Super, 4-5 in the multi-race. Let's get to the fifth event now from Santa Anita, which is the American Oaks. It's a grade 1 event going for a $300,000 purse race for 3-year-old fillies. We have a field of 7 horses going 2,000 meters or a mile and a quarter on the Santa Anita turf course. I'm going to take the 2-horse Anisette as a top selection. There we go. I'm going to go 2-4-1-6 in the superfecta. 2-4-1-6 super, top selection 2-horse Anisette. This 3-year-old filly by Atwad here. Leonard Powell trains, excuse me, I can't speak. Leonard Powell trains. Umberto Rispoli gets the mount. The horse's most recent outing came in the autumn miss here at Santa Anita, a mile on the 5th of November. He finished second by 3.5 lengths that day. He was just a little bit wide. He gained a little bit late, but I thought he needed something more, but I didn't think it was a half bad race. She had a great start of her season here in the stateside, but then her form just kind of went backwards. But it hasn't gone backwards completely. But I do think back to a mile and a quarter should suit her well. Against older horses in the Rodeo Drive over the mile and a quarter, 7th of October locally, she finished second by 1/4 lengths that day, and she stalked that day. Dida, who won that day, really had to turn a foot late to win. But this horse, she ran her heart out that day, first defeat stateside, and then she was a winner 4 in a row. She won the Del Mar Oaks of the mile furlong on the 19th of August quite nicely, closing up from nowhere. Came back, won prior to that the San Clemente over the mile at Del Mar easily, and won her stateside debut over the mile here in a lounge race locally by 3/4 length after a horrible beginning. She wanted to go. Flavian had a tight hold on her, but when she had the turn of foot, she won open lengths there. And then she went over the mile in the 8th at Wolverhampton nearly a year ago, 27th of December to be exact, on the Tapeta, winning by 4 lengths. She really took off clear against some lesser quality horses, but it was still a good run. Training well, back to this turf course, back to a mile and a quarter. She could win. I think the 4-horse here, Aluda Queen for Philly D'Amato and Juan Hernandez, get a trip to win. She ran in the Matriarch most recently where she lost all chances out of the gate. She didn't break. You have to break, especially with the 12-horse field. When you're drawn on the rail in a 12-horse field at Del Mar going a mile. She didn't. She just never got clear, and she just never showed up. It wasn't her day to win. Prior to the QE2 Cup at Keeneland over the mile and 8, she finished 7 by 7 lengths that day, and she just never again showed up. Maj just had a terrific race on the front end. But before that, over the summer, she was running decently in the Group 3s and the lower end races. And the Group 3 Prix Larry, she won by a head, closing up from nowhere to get the job done. And then the Prix de la Surema Stakes of La Teste de Bouche, a very small track in France over the mile. She finished second by a nose, and she just missed closing up from nowhere. Coming stateside to a mile and a quarter, I think is something she wants to do. She could win at 5-1. Let's use her on the ticket. But to recount my selection for the 5th from Santa Anita now, it is the Grade 1 American Oaks. Going to take the 2-horse Anisette. Did I say it right? Gonna give kudos to the 4-horse Alunda Queen. 2-4-1-6 Super. 2-4 in the multi-race. Let's get to the 6th event from Santa Anita. It is San Antonio Stakes. It's a grade 2 event going for a $200,000 purse race for 3-year-olds and upwards. We have a field of 6 horses going 1,700 meters or a mile 16th in the San Antonio local prep race for the Pegasus and the beginning of the handicap series for all the horses at Santa Anita, which will go on next. I believe the San Pasquale, which goes into the Santa Anita handicap. Years ago, they used to have the Stroop series, which would you would see this race never used to be run in late December. It used to be run in early January, but usually, if I'm not mistaken, the Stroop series used to be. It was the Malibu and the Stroop. What was the race in the between? Comment below because I can't remember it now. I'll probably Google it afterwards. But I missed that the Stroop. You always see some good horses running it. If I'm not mistaken, didn't Game on Dude win it or something like that, or win the Stroop or something like that? Or I know Rock Hard 10 did, but can't think of it. Getting off subject. My top selection here. I'm going to go with the number 4 horse Newgrange. I'm going to go 4-2-5-1 in the superfecta. 4-2-5-1 Super. Top selection, the 4-horse Newgrange. 4 called by Violence. Phil D'Amato trains. Irad Tees Jr. gets the mount. Most recently, they ran the horse in the Grade 3 Native Diver at Del Mar, mile 8th on 26th November, and the horse finished 3rd by 3 3/4 lengths that day. And he just kind of stalked that day. He had the lead for a second and then completely crumbled. He just wasn't keeping up that day. I hope they just let this horse go. If they let this horse go, he could win. 2 back in the optional 80 at Santina, mile on the 6th of October. He finished 3rd by 4 3/4 lengths that day, and he was flying on the front end early on. Practical Joke caught him late. Tripoli finished second. It's a decent horse. He got caught by decent horses, but off the bench, probably neither race, but he ran his heart out that day. And then the Santa Anita handicap at Santa Anita, a mile and a quarter on the 4th of March. He finished 7th by 12 and a quarter lengths that day. He didn't break going out of the gate, and he just was never comfortable that day. He lost all chance at the beginning, but I thought he ran terrifically in the San Pasquale over the mile in the 8th in January, winning by a length from a tracking trip. He got the job done going away. And then last year, in the native diver, he finished third, where he just, again, never got into it. Maybe he doesn't want to go the mile and a quarter. Cutting back and trip back to Santa Anita, where he really likes to do his better running style. He could definitely win. I think the two horse here, Salesman, could get a trip to win also for Dick Mandela and Mike Smith. For all intentions, for everything he did at Santa Anita last time out, he basically walked in a paid workout. Mile 5/8 in the thoroughbred Aftercare Alliance Marathon. He won by 8.5 lengths and basically walked in the front end, and he took off clear. Easy run. I believe that race was downgraded last week from a grade 2 to a grade 3. Let's see if they bring it back this year. If I bring it back, I would run it on turf at 2 miles. I think that we're crying out for a 2-mile race at the end of the year, and not the Alan Jerkin Stakes. And I think a turf marathon longer than a mile and a half is something maybe they could bring to that Breeders' Cup card. But he basically won for fun. It was a very easy race. Prior to that, in the Los Al Special over the mile 16th, he finished third by 3.5 lengths that day. He just kind of hit the wall late with the long stretch, but he ran his heart out first on the dirt, and then the wicker at Del Mar of the mile. He finished 12th by 9 lengths. A very troubled trip. He was wide and he bumped around. He just wasn't getting into it, and then he just saw two tough horses in the Shoemaker Mile. But his races in France, he was facing some tough horses and winning in spots against those tough horses. Coming here back to dirt, trading well. I'll give him a shot here in the pick 6 that begins with this race. Remember, $1 pick 6 this season at Santa Anita, and $1 trifecta is also in $1 pick 3. So if you like that, you like it. Let's recap the selections now for the 6 from Santa Anita. It's the grade 2 San Antonio. Gonna take the 4-horse Newgrange as a top selection. Give kudos to the 2-horse Salesman. 4-2-5-1 Super. 4-2 in the multi race. Let's head over to the featured 8th race now from Santa Anita. The featured 8th race now from Santa Anita. It is the Malibu Stakes. It's a grade 1 event going for a $300,000 purse race for 3-year-olds here. We have a field of 8 horses going 1,400 meters or 7 furlongs in this year's Malibu. My top selection, I'm going to go with the number 2 horse here, Fort Bragg. I'm going to go 2-8-5-3 in the superfecta. 2-8-5-3 super. Top selection 2 horse, Fort Bragg. 3-year-old colt by Tappet. Bob Baffert trains. Irader Tease Jr. gets to mount. The horse's most recent outing came in an optional 80 at Del Mar, 6.5 on the 17th of November, getting a race under his belt, a good confidence builder getting him back to the winner's circle, only facing 3 other rivals that day. He basically won on the front end. He was flying on the front end, 108 and 1 3/4, but when he took off clear with Lasix on for the first time. Not a bad race. Back to facing the big boys. Off some decent buyers where he could definitely win against these horses. I think he could run a good race and win. Early on in his career, they were trying him on the Derby route, where I just don't think it was the right thing. He wants to go a 1-turn 7 furlongs, probably even a 1-turn mile. That's where he wanted to do. I like that they're cutting him back again. I do think 6 furlongs, though, 2 back was still a bit too short for him. 6 furlongs in the Grade 2 Santa Anita Sprint Championship. He finished third by 1/4 lengths that day, and speedier horses got to them on the front end. He just had no turn of foot, just flat. It wasn't his day to win. And then the Alan Jerkins on the mud at Saratoga, 7 furlongs, 26th of August. He finished fourth by 15 1/4 lengths that day. He didn't break. I don't think he liked the dirt in his face, and he just never showed up. It wasn't his day to win. But the race 2 back, he probably ran one of the best races of the fall of the spring meet at Belmont. 1 mile in the grade 3 Dwyer. Over the mile, he won by a nose that day, dueling with Saudi Crown. That was an old-fashioned horse race in the lane. Saudi Crown, Fort Bragg. Saudi Crown, Fort Bragg. Fort Bragg got the head in front, or the nose in front. It was a very game performance by the both of them. 106 Spire. That was a good old-fashioned horse race to the wire. I was there that day. It was one thing first. It was 1,000 degrees with the humidity, but this horse, he ran his heart out that day. Did bet Saudi Crown, by the way, but still, this one ran well. And then prior to that, he ran terrifically, I thought, in the Pat Day Mile at Church over the mile. Finishing second by a neck, he stalked. He had the lead. He got overtaken by general gym late, but again, he ran his heart out that day. And then a race, they proved that he didn't want to go the route and trip. A mile in the eighth in the Florida Derby. He finished fifth by 9 1/4 lengths that day. He didn't break. He was wide, and he just wasn't, staying late. It wasn't his day to win. They could have got it off the San Felipe also, where he finished fifth by 5 1/4 lengths, very wide, and he just wasn't staying the trip. Back in trip, he's in a proper spot to win. Getting your eye right up for the first time. Let's use him on the ticket. I think the 8 horse here, Raise Cane, for Ben Colbrook and Frankie Dettori, could get the trip to win. Now, you might be thinking, Frankie Dettori, I thought he retired. Yes, if you go back to a year ago, it was the beginning of his farewell tour. And then he decided, you know what? I'm not going to retire. I'm going to start riding full-time stateside, which I called. If you go back to last year's Malibu preview, I'm pretty sure I said, you know what, I could see him saying, I'll stick around a year and a couple more years and start riding in America. It was the worst kept secret in the UK press, because everybody knew he was going to go ride again this winter. And, definitely at Santina, but, it was the open secret. They didn't know that he was going to keep going full-time here in America, but good for him. I would like to see him, get some American stakes victories under his belt, and I think this horse could get him to him. Most recently, they ran this horse in the Perryville, the 7 furlongs in October at Keeneland, where he went by a head and he stalked all the way around. When he got to the front end, he dueled to the wire, and he got the job done. A very good run cutting back and trip. Another horse, I don't know if he wants to go the 2 turns. He ran in the Oklahoma Derby at Remington, where he finished fourth by a length, never really showing up. He never showed up in the West Virginia Derby at Mountaineer. He had a decent second in the Indiana Derby, but Verifying took off clear there. And then the Mount win, he finished fourth by 7 lengths at Ellis on the slop, where he just wasn't getting the trip. I thought his best race lifetime was actually that Gotham and Aqueduct, the mile drawn in 11 of 14 that day, drawn in the parking lot, stupidly wide, but he kept coming late. That was a very good run at Aqueduct that day, and he opened my eyes that day. I would have probably bet him after that race in the Alan Jerkins or in the Woody Stevens. They tried the longer trips for him where he just wasn't getting into it, but I'm glad that he's cutting back in trip. He's training well in Kentucky. At 5-1, he could definitely win here. And also watch out for the 5-horse Damon's Mound from Michelle Lovell and Junior Alvarado. Most recently in the Gallant Bob at Parks 2-back over the 6, he won by 1 1/4 lengths, taking off clear. He was drifting in the Steel Valley Sprint, which cost him the victory at Mahoning Valley. Just couldn't keep up there. And the Robert Hilton Memorial 3-back, he won by 2 from a wide poster. Again, he took off clear. His last 3 races have been decent runs. You might have to jump up a few buyer points, but at 6-1, I'll give him a shot here on the ticket. But to recap my selection for the featured 8th race now from Santa Anita, it's the Grade 1 Malibu. Gonna take the 2-horse Fort Bragg. We'll give kudos to the 8-horse Raise Cane and the 5-horse Damon's Mound. 2-8-5-3 Super, 2-8-5 in the multi-race. The 9th race from Santa Anita now. It is the Santa Anita Mathis Mile. It's a Grade 2 event going for a $200,000 purse race for 3-year-olds here. We have a field of 7 horses going 1,600 meters or a mile on the Santa Anita turf course, formerly known as the Surf Beaufort years ago. This race, and it was known as the Mathis Brothers Mile. Now it's known as the Santa Anita Mathis Mile. My top selection here, I'm going to go with the number 4 horse, Alamdaris. Here we go. I'm going to go 4-2-7-6 in the superfecta. 4-2-7-6 Super. Top selection of 4 is Alamdaris. This 3-year-old gelding by Havana Gray. Phil Diamato trains. Flavian Pratt gets the mount. Horse's most recent outing came earlier this month, 3rd of December to be exact, at Del Mar. A mile and optional 80 claimer, and he won by 3/4 length that day. He was a little bit wide, but he sat back early, and he flew home late. There was a bit of a pace meltdown because they were flying early on, but he closed up into that fast pace and took off clear. Second win stateside. I thought that was very good effort. Coming back here, stepping up in class to a mile trip, drawn very well. I think he'd get a trip to win. Here stateside at times, he just gets wide post draws. He got a wide poster on the Twilight Derby, a mile and 1/8 on Brewer's Cup undercard on the 4th of November locally. He finished 5th by length. It was an all-out finish. He was a little bit wide, but he just missed late. Seal Team and Silver Knot and Webslinger, the top 3 are terrific horses. This horse just ran his heart out behind him. I do think that Twilight Derby was actually it should have been a Grade 1 if you go off the horses this year, compared to the Hollywood Derby, which they ran a month later. That wasn't a Grade 1 quality race, but that Twilight Derby probably came up one of the best runnings I've seen in my lifetime. And then prior to that, he ran ran the Del Mar Derby over the mile and eighth in late September, where he finished third by length. Again, a little bit wide, but he was closing up well late. I thought if the race was a mile and a quarter, he would have really made it interesting late. And then in mid-July, locally, first time stateside, or not locally, Del Mar, a mile 16th and optional 80. He won by 2.5 lengths, closing up from nowhere. A very good run. He's training on the turf at Del Mar since the last race and on the dirt here locally. I'll give him a shot at 2-1 on the ticket. I think the two-horse Panic Alarm for John Sadler and Hector Barrios could win. He ran in the Twilight Derby where he just never really got going until very late in the run. It was an all-out finish. He finished 7 by 1.75 lengths. He needs something more, but he ran his heart out that day against some very tough horses. Prior to the Del Mar Derby of the mile and eighth in mid-September, or excuse me, early September, he finished 4th by 1.75 lengths. A tough trip around the bend, but he was, again, closing that day. And then the La Jolla Handicap over the mile 16th, he finished 2nd by a length, again, a little bit wide, but he got around the race course well. His races in Ireland and the UK before that, he just didn't like these very soft ground. He just never had the turn of foot. I think he's been crying out for fast ground. He's been getting it since he's come stateside, and I expect him to improve a lot. I'm going to use him on the ticket. Even the 7-horse Watsonville for Mark Latt and Antonio Frazu, he ran in that Hollywood Derby last time where he just kind of hit the wall. Again, he hit the wall from a wide poster on the Twilight Derby. I think he's a horse that's been crying out for a decrease in trip. He's going to get it here today. I'll give him a shot at 5-2 in the slate pick 4. But to recap my selection for the ninth now from Santa Anita, it's the Santa Anita Mathis Mile. Gonna take the 4-horse Almendaire as a top selection. Give kudos to the 2-horse Panic Alarm and the 7-horse Watsonville. 4-2-7-6 Super. 4-2-7 in the multi-race. Let's get to the 10th race, the final stakes race on the program. It is the Brea Stakes. It's a grade 1 event going for a $300,000 purse, race for 3-year-old fillies. 10 horses are going 1,400 meters or 7 furlongs on the main track. Gonna take here the number 6 horse Ice Dancing. I'm gonna go 6-5-3-9 in the superfecta. 6-5-3-9 super, top selection 6 horse Ice Dancing. 3-year-old filly by Frosted. Dick Mandela trains. Mike Smith gets to mount. The horse's most recent outing, first off, the long refreshing came on the 20th of October at Santa Anita, 6.5 an optional 80 claimer, where he finished 2nd by a half a length that day. He broke on top, he set the pace, he hit the wall in the final half furlong, but needed the race star off the bench. Come back here facing the big boys, back to 7 furlongs where I don't think she needs to lead. I think she'd close up into it. I think she's in a good spot to get the winner's circle check again today. 2 back, she ran the grade 3 Santa Ynez, 7 furlongs 8th of January, and she put on a show that day. She won by 3.25 lengths, and she had a wide trip. She was wide throughout, but she sat back early. She closed into the slow pace. And, she won by 3.25 lengths. Not a bad race after all said and done. And then the main special weight on the 25th of November 2022 at Del Mar. A mile there, winning by a length on the front end all throughout. I don't know if she wants to go 2 turns, but she got the job done there. Before that, she was actually running against stakes quality horses, still being a maiden. She ran the Chandelier of 2022, where she finished 4th by 6 lengths, and ran in the Del Mar Debutante in 2022, where she finished 3rd by 3.5 lengths, never really getting the trip to win. But, after the Chandelier where she broke her maiden, she's really run these good races since then. Second off, she should be a lot fresher. She might have to get a little faster in buyer's points, but I think she has ability to win here at 6-1. Let's use her. I think the 5-horse Royal Spot for Ira Ortiz Jr. and Rudolph Brissett could win also. Most recently at Churchill in early November, 6 furlongs and an optional 125. The horse won by a head that day, closing up from nowhere. I thought the horse really took off clear off the bench. Prior to that, she was on the Derby Trail. She actually ran the Fantasy on the 1st of April at Oaklawn. Over the mile 16, she finished 9th by 12.5 lengths, never showing up that day. And then over the 6 and lounge race at Oaklawn, she won by 1.75 lengths again, closing up from nowhere. Very good race. She might, again, another horse might have to get a little faster here, but she's back to a trip that she wants to do. I think she's been calling out for 7 furlongs. She's going to get it. I'll give her a shot on the ticket. I also like that since her last race, they've taken her here earlier in the month, so she's had 3 workouts over this track, which I quite like. I don't like when when horses shift from Southern California and just don't have some races over this track at Santa Anita. I think with a little bit of deeper track at times, horses just need to get accustomed to it. I like that the horse is accustomed to it, and the workout patterns look like she's getting good over it. I'll use her on the ticket. Even the 3-horse Howl for Brad Cox, a horse that hasn't had a workout with this track, but her races here on the East Coast haven't been bad at all. Broke her maiden 2 back at Keeneland quite nicely by half a dozen, and came back to win the safely cap at Laurel quite nicely also. She's run fast races. It wouldn't surprise me if she steals on the front end. Let's use her in the late pick 4. But to recap my selection for the 10th from Santina now, it's the grade 1 La Brea. As a top selection, we'll take the 6-horse Ice Dancing. Give kudos to the 5-horse Royal Spy and the 3-horse Howell. 6539 Super, 653 in the multi-race. So, good luck to all, and please follow me on Twitter at HorseRacingKid5. Good luck, everybody.